So in today's webinar, we're going to be looking at some work that the Police Digital Service has been doing in collaboration with the Durham Constabulary and the College of Policing to address a significant area of risk, namely the decision to deploy police firearms as an operational tactic. This is an area of policing which is highly challenging, complex and fraught with risk, and rightly under huge scrutiny. Every decision or absence of a decision will be scrutinised and challenged if things go wrong, so it's critical for the Tactical Firearms Commanders, the TFCs, to have confidence in their record making, ensuring it reflects their thoughts, considerations and decisions based on the information they have and intelligence they have at any known time. A record of decision needs to be transparent and auditable so the police can rightly be held to account. For several years, record making has been made by paper-based, inflexible and often complex processes, and it's been an area of concern for chief officers and interested third parties for some time. So today I'm joined by two members of the Durham Constabulary who've been fundamental in the development of the solution. Louise and Sam join us today, and they're going to take us through the solution in a few moments, and they've helped to build this solution within the basic 365 build that forces have and have the capability of using. Louise, if I can come to you first of all, what was the problem and what you were trying to fix?
Yeah, so obviously, as you alluded to there, David, we had the current model that was a very large, often paper-based document, although there was an electronic version of it. It didn't give auditability, the ease of use was quite difficult, and what we wanted to do was establish a new, more user-friendly and more auditable app, a piece of equipment that we could, as Tactical Firearms Commanders, use to record our decisions that were auditable, that gave accountability for us, and that also tied in directly with regards to public confidence. So we received several months ago a minimum standards document from the College of Policing, where it outlined in a huge amount of detail around all of the things that we as TFCs needed to be including in our record keeping and our documentation. And again, this is highlighted by some of the findings that were key to the Anthony Granger public inquiry and also the Jermaine Baker public inquiry. So we wanted to develop something that allowed us more ease of use and that greater accountability and transparency, again tying in with all the findings from those public inquiries, and as such that just allows us to come up with something that's far more fit for purpose in light of the current challenges that are faced by Tactical Firearms Commanders.
So Louise, we can quite clearly see there's an urgent need for a solution that's robust, modern and importantly meets the needs of the Tactical Firearms Commander. So what's been developed in this Power App and how does it try to address those challenges? It might also be worth taking us through the development process. I know lots of TFCs watching this will have a huge interest in the solution and want to know how easy is it to use and what training they require.
Yeah, so obviously the first thing we looked at is we looked at the document that we had been using for a very long period of time. Obviously there were bits of it that were clunky, unwieldy, but we wanted to start with that particular document as a starting point. Obviously any part of a policing operation, in particular firearms deployment, is going to start with a lot of information intelligence, but then we wanted to come up with that app that was able allow the TFCs to process that information intelligence and record it appropriately, and then come up with a suitable way that we can document the rationale that we use to complete that operation and come up with a suitable deployment that's ECHR compliant and relevant to all the other powers and policies that we would consider. So in terms of what it means for TFCs is it's nothing where significant amounts of training would be required. Myself and Sam, throughout the development of this, we've included a wide pool of TFCs from Durham Constabulary and also wider forces, and keeping in mind that this is quite a straightforward app but that covers every part of the NDM. It's allowed TFCs and the feedback that we've had to become really familiar really quickly with it. It's incredibly simple to use. And I know other systems have been discussed and are used around Clio. There are other IT systems, but in my personal opinion, I think Sam will agree as well, all of the research that we've done with our colleagues, this one has certainly received some really positive and you know, really user friendly sort of feedback around how TFCs have used it in a test environment, but now also in a live arena.
And I think an important point here that this isn't for the spontaneous deployments, is it? This is more for your pre-planned and protracted operations.
Absolutely, yeah. So what we've done is we've looked at the planned environment. We know that we've got spin sheets that are used very effectively in that spontaneous world, that very fast time decision making world. This app is designed for planned jobs, whether it's you know, anything from a protected person visit or you know, a large event that is that has a sort of wider command structure, whether it involves a public order as well as a firearms deployment. So this is for your planned jobs, and one of the key things that I know Sam's going to talk about in a little while is that ability and some of the feedback, that ability to record and give rationale for a multi-dimensional threat assessment. That was something that was missing from the previous documentation we've been used, and hopefully we've been able to address that. And obviously that multi-dimensional threat assessment is a real key part of what TFCs must consider as that pre-planned deployment.
So let's get into the solution now. Sam, I wonder if you'd walk me through it, and just to highlight to everybody, we have used some dummy or demonstration data, and we're only going to be covering elements of the solution which don't divulge any policing tactics. And we have worked very closely with our partners to ensure that the content today is something that we can talk about in this forum.
Yes, that's correct, Dave. Good afternoon, everybody. Sam Turner, I'm a Chief Inspector with Durham Police. Currently seconded to the Digital Data and Technology Coordination Committee within the MPCC. Can I just confirm that you can see the slides there, Dave?
Yeah, that's good to go.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is an overview of the application. So this will be your home screen that you can see here, and I really want to highlight there's a box in the middle that you can that you acknowledge, and that's basically acknowledging that you understand the code of ethics. And as a TFC, that's our bread and butter, because it's within the central element of the national decision model which we utilise when reviewing firearms deployments. So that's the overview, and you can see there the SFC, the TFC, or Operational Firearms Commander, and within that, quite simply, I can utilise the Active Directory within Force that your forces will have access to, where you can actually identify who your SFC and TFC is going to be quite quickly, rather than having to direct input all the time. So that is the log overview, and as you can see down the left hand side of the screen, we've got tabs in blue numbered 1 to 9, and that's really following the process of the national decision model. So starting with that information intelligence, threat and risk, onto your powers and policies and tactical options. So that's the kind of layout of the application. I'll move to the second slide. So this really looks at the information intelligence that we're inputting into the actual system. And you can see there's several tabs across the top, and the highlighted tab is in red. So this refers to the information intelligence, and you can see several entries that I've put under the red tabs there. Again, that's demonstration data, but what is really important here, Dave, is again what Louise has alluded to, is that accountability process. So you can see there within the screen the date and time that the TFC was notified of that information intelligence is recorded, along with the date and time that it's actually been recorded on the application. And again, coming back to the National Minimum Standards document in relation to the intelligence grading or the unique reference number, you can't actually progress through the application until there is information recorded within that tab. Again, just showing that the connection between the information and intelligence and whether that's been assessed or not. We also thought it was really important to really consider that intelligence confidence in respect of whether that is fact or whether that's assumption, because obviously that supports us moving through the briefing of our staff in relation to any deployment. And again, like I keep referring to, the whole auditable process with regards to that date and time recorded. Excuse me. Staying within the information intelligence section, I'll move on to 1.3, which really looks at the identity, capability and intent of the subject. Again, from the National Minimum Standards document, this was really relevant, and obviously we need to record that accurately. So again, within this section, you can see an entry that I've placed under the red tab there, but I just want to refer to the top section where it states vulnerability status. And as you select that, it again provides additional boxes for you to record the information in relation to the vulnerability of the person or group, any EMD, emotional behavioural influences that need to be recorded, again demonstrating that accountability for any post-incident investigation. And finally, within the information intelligence section, this is a really beneficial tool, that direct tasking of your intelligence cell. Again, utilising the Active Directory to be able to identify very quickly who your officer is going to be. And then once you save that entry, that directly emails the individual who has been allocated that task. So that's spontaneous, and again through the Active Directory within Force, and again demonstrating the accountability of the application. In relation to the threat assessment, and Louise touched on this previously with regards to that multi-dimensional threat assessment, something that the paper document didn't really allow us to kind of record. But within this here, again, you can see some of the entries that we've made. And if I just highlight the risk when tab, so again, you can see there the risk when is when there's an ambush or attack on the convoy, and you can see through the rev counter that we've actually been able to incorporate into the application when that risk may change throughout the operation. Because this is a slide, I can't actually scroll to the bottom of that tab, but you would see where the risk when was potentially at the start of the operation, where risk to individuals or groups would be considerably lower. But again, it demonstrates that this is a multi-dimensional threat assessment, so you can actually record at different points throughout the operation the different risks to groups and individuals. And again, auditable process there because everything is time date stamped when it was entered and saved. Before I move on to option 4, I really just want to quickly touch on section 3, which I don't have a slide for, but that's powers and policy. And when we worked with the college, excuse me, when we worked with the college, they were really keen to emphasise that in relation to powers and policies, it's not just about copy and pasting from a previous deployment. This is really bespoke to the operation. And whilst we do within section 3 have some tabs that you highlight, say in relation to use of force or certain policy, it then provides a text box that you need to record and rationalise why you've actually indicated that particular power or policy that you're considering for this deployment. And again, within that section 3, we really focus on the code of ethics, that you've considered the code of ethics as part of your deployment, and whether this potentially may result in a critical incident. So those are elements within that National Minimum Standards document that are recorded within section 3. So in relation to section 4, which is your options and tactics, this is quite a succinct way of actually identifying tactics that you've considered, and that's not just all your kind of armed options, that's your unarmed options as well, but it provides you with the opportunity to rationalise what you've considered for when you come to brief the SFC. Excuse me. And then again, you can see in the top section of the screen, if you selected the evidential threshold was reached, it provides a drop-down box where you can actually record whether you've got any tipping points for your operation, as well as what your evidential threshold is, married with the SIO objectives that you potentially might have for this deployment. Within section 4, so from 4.6 to 4.9, as you can see across the top there, this is an opportunity for your SFC to actually record some of their decision making in relation to what you've actually briefed them. So you can see in the slide here where the SFC agrees to the threat and risk that's being presented, or whether they might actually want to introduce another individual or group, and they can actually rationalise and record their decision making in relation to this. And what I think is really relevant, and it'll actually it links in nicely to the next slide, which is the access control slide, which is section 9 at the bottom. So if I was briefing Louise, as you can see on the slide here, she is the SFC. I can actually go into the application directly whilst briefing her and grant her read and write access. This is my application as a TFC, but she's signing off or might want to change some of that that recording, so she can directly input that by me allowing her to have that read and write access. And that's very simply, again, just highlighting Louise, granting her that read and write access, saving that, and then she would have the option to directly input onto that TFC application. And that's the conclusion of the slide deck there, Dave. I just want to quickly highlight, in case it comes up as a question, but if I go back to section 1 at the top, there's an option where you can actually save that as a PDF, and certainly within Durham we're trying to move away from that. But if some TFCs do want that as an option, when you produce that as a PDF document, it actually produces it in the format of the previous kind of TFC log in a very structured format, and it also has the security marking classification at the top of that document for when it's produced. Thank you.
Sam, that's very much appreciated. And one obvious question, which I'll talk through in a second, is how do you get hold of this? This is a really simple solution to download, and it is for free. It's been developed by Policing for Policing with Policing. It's in the solutions catalogue. So if I share my screen and talk you through where you can get it, the PDS website does have a view of the solutions catalogue. You can't actually download the solutions from the PDS website. We list most of them on there. If you are already a guest member of PDS, you'll be able to click straight through to the actual solutions catalogue. If you're not a member already, and you have to be from a police.uk email address, part of our membership, you click there and that will open a very simple form where you can put your force details in and put your email address in. So if I just picked up one here as an example, pop your email address in, that starts a very simple automated process and comes through to the business engagement team, who will then grant you access. But then when you do get there, you get into the PDS force collaboration space. The solutions catalogue is there, and of course one of the things that's really important here is that it's only really the 365 administrators who can actually do anything with the download. So we do highlight that first of all, and you can simply search for it or list through them. There it is, the Tactical Firearms Commanders decision-making log. You can see the screenshots, the guides, everything you need to download the solution, including all the instructions, are all in there. So that will help you get there to be able to implement it at a local level and to support the local IT teams into doing this. And it's a very simple process, and it's completely configurable for the local force to be able to use this solution. So that should give you an idea of how to get it in there. I'm going to bring back Louise now. Louise, we haven't been developing this solution in isolation. We've been discussing the requirements and the final design with the college. What's the college's view been on this?
Yeah, so from the outset, when myself and Sam started working with yourselves, it was really imperative that we did get the college their feedback, their thoughts on it. And we spoke. We involved Kev Nicholson, who's obviously the lead for this at the College of Policing. Obviously, that minimum standards document that we've mentioned on a couple of occasions, their view is that they've accepted that this previous documentation we've been using isn't necessarily the best thing. Like I said, that Anthony Granger public inquiry showed us that rationale, decision making, note keeping wasn't what it should be. And the college's view was that a lot of this is probably better locally managed by individual forces, and I can certainly see the benefit of that. However, this app allows a huge level of consistency and auditability, so hence the reason why myself and Sam presented very similarly to what we're doing this morning, and we presented that to the college, and we received some really positive feedback about this, and also that it is completely compliant with that minimum standards document. Sam and myself did spend a long time going through every element of that app and making changes as necessary to ensure that it was compliant with every aspect of it. Therefore, we weren't jeopardising TFCs and SFCs, so we weren't missing those key elements that we should be recording as firearms commanders. So that's kind of where we're at so far with the college and with other people who are subject matter experts in and around this particular area of business. It has received some really positive feedback so far.
That's fantastic. And we've got a couple of questions in that I'm going to post to you, and this one can go to you first of all, Louisa. Do you have a similar system in place for the firearms tactical advisors to complete? If not, how do you currently record your TA advice?
Yeah, so this is something that myself and Sam have been asked quite a bit. So we worked with one of our primary TAC advisors, and we got his feedback whilst we were trying to develop that. And as soon as this has been shared with the TAC advisors, they've said that they would like something exactly the same as this. And again, similarly for the SFCs, it is, and I think that's testament to the product itself, that it is entirely fit for purpose, totally NDM compliant and in line with those minimum standards. So it's something that I can see with a small amount of changes to that, even just the wording of it and other elements that a TAC advisor would need prompts to make sure that they speak to the TFCs, and if the SFCs are also seeking TAC advice, it's certainly something that could be replicated for any element of that firearms command structure.
I think that's one of the most important things about this approach of the development we're going through with forces on these things. These are solutions that are for the force to administrate, and we can continue to update them and develop them based on the feedback. This application is being used live right now, isn't it? So, this is how we're developing and improving it. And I've got a similar question from Matt. Does the FTA, need to complete the options and consider them for the TFC to make the decisions on that based on the discussions they've had with the FTA? And if you just explain what FTA is for colleagues as well, please.
Yeah, so I think what we're getting at there, so the firearms tactical advisor, what is common practice is that you will have an initial meeting with your firearms tactical advisor. You will talk through your threat assessment and working strategy, go through all the information and intelligence, and it'll be apparent what, depending on whether it is like a vehicle escort or a crowded place event. You have a finite number of options, but based on your initial meeting with regards to the threat assessment working strategy, what would normally happen is your FTA or your TAC advisor would produce a document that outlined all of the tactical options that they would present to you that you could use or may discount in an armed operation. So I guess what would, again, auditability and to avoid duplication, what would be useful is that those advisors are able to potentially populate that tactical option section within the document, or if they were to use their own document that was totally compatible. And I know we shouldn't be scared about copy and paste per se, but it's how we use it. So is there a way that we can transfer what your TAC advisor in their document, or do we give them read write access in the TFC's document? And again, I think that's down to individual force policy, or also a discussion between the TFC and the TAC advisor.
Thanks. So I'm going to go a little bit more about the prerequisites for the app now. I've got a couple of questions from Andrea around this. But the first one being, and I think the one most important is this a managed app or is it an unmanaged app, and do the forces become responsible for it? Yeah, the force does become responsible for this. We do provide updates when they come available, but this is where you can really link in with your business engagement manager for support. So the forces do implement this. It's not like an app you get from Play Store or the App Store. This is an app that does need local configuration to suit. And of course, it does work within the 365 environment, so it works within the AD and all those compliance and data and protection measures that are already in place. How long did this take to actually develop,
So myself and Sam have been working on this for probably 12 months now. Would that be right, Sam?
Yeah, I'd say that's about accurate, Louise. And to be fair, it's been a really good process working alongside Louise internally, but also the College of Policing and Tom and Richard, who have been really beneficial within the PDS world with regards to what we can and can't achieve. But yeah, probably touching on 12 months.
Okay, but this is now live and being used for real life, so that's not bad at all in terms of the position we've got to. Who is actually going to be using this? Is it officers and staff? Is it specific roles within the force?
So this document is primarily for any CARDA TFCs. So those TFCs that are trained and accredited in the command of planned firearms jobs. That will obviously then be, as Sam explained, on the ability to have to give wider people access. So the only people I would primarily see as having that wider access are your strategic firearms commander, so at that gold level, and potentially, you know, as per the discussion that we had earlier around your TAC advisors. So in the main, it's those people that are involved in your firearms command structure that will be utilising this document.
Thanks. We are beginning to run out of time, and there's a couple more questions about accessibility. And again, we've got the details of the people there, so we'll follow those up separately out offline on them. I know we are going to be planning an event and a closed workshop to actually go through this with live data to understand how it can be implemented. So the business engagement manager will have details of that, and we'll publicise that to our members very soon, so we can do that at a very near future. Just conscious of the other things that are coming up, and it is a busy month again this month. We've got an awful lot going on. Our next webinar next week is going to be around decision making. It's more actually around how you pass on information about those daily incidents of note between the gold commanders, local commanders, and making sure that the appropriate responses are put in place across the force. So that's with Kent Policing. Again, it's a piece of work that's been developed by Policing again, and it isn't even an app, this one. This is lists and a couple of automates, so it's a really good example of what you can do using the technology sets that we've got to improve things. We do, of course, really want your feedback around our webinars, so if you can fill in the feedback link that's going to go into the chat on screen there, scan that link, fill in the very quick survey. It helps us to work out what we should be doing for our future webinars, what content most interests you, and how you're using them, so we can continue to add value. And just a reminder of the events coming up. We've got the fantastic redaction workshop in a few weeks' time with Adobe that's going to go into some real detail about how we can use redaction. And then we've got a whole series of events that are on the PDS events website where you can get access to a lot more going on. I'm just this afternoon going to be updating the website with some more events right into the new year as we move forward. So I'd really like to thank Sam and Louise for joining us today. I've been looking forward to this one. There's an awful lot in this solution, and I'm aware of the dynamic decision making work that's going on. This is complements that. That's not there yet. This is the sort of thing that can continue to work through as we get moving forward. So thanks again for joining us, and I hope you can join us at our webinar in a couple of weeks. See you soon.